Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the 7th Orthodontic Lab for Class 4 student, College of Dentistry, Muslim University. Today we talk about a new spring that used in removable orthodontic appliance, which is modified buccal canine retractor. This spring represents a modification on the buccal canine retractor in the previous lab. This modification mainly concentrated in the active arm. So this modification will provide more control over the tooth during retraction and enable palatal movement of the canine, and lastly provide light extrusion force. So the indication of this spring is to move the canine distally when it overlaps the lateral incisor, or when we need more movement palatally, and for partially erupted canine that need light extrusion. This spring is also made from 0.7 stainless steel wire. Now we start to construct it. First we cut a piece of wire. We consider that this first premolar is extracted. Now we start from the distal side of the canine. We put the end of the active arm at the distal side of the canine and mark a point about 2 millimeters longer than the mesodistal width of the canine. About 2 millimeters longer than the mesodistal width of the canine. Then we hold the wire at the mark point and start to make the loop. The important point that the active arm should well adapted on the labial surface of the canine. We need to increase the adaptation more. At the mesial part, we need to make a sharp bend to make the active arm well engaged at the mesial side of the crown in this manner. This engagement as well, but we need to adapt the end more. We see the wire follow the curvature of the labial surface of the canine. Now we can see the active arm well adapted on the labial surface. There is no space between the active arm and the labial surface. The mesial end of the active arm well engaged on the mesial surface, of the canine to provide a full control over the crown during movement. The location of the active arm is at the middle third between the incisal edge and the gingival margin. Now, at the midpoint of the crown, here, we start to mark a point. Just like the canine retractor. This bend nearly 90 degrees. The position of the coil should be located here. I mean, the long axis of the extracted first premolar pass through the coil, and the coil should be at least 2 millimeters shorter than the sulcus. So I check. I need more bend. Yes. I support the active arm and mark the point. I hold the wire in such a way and start to make small bend. Check my work. If it's correct, I will continue. Yes. The coil is also 3 to 5 millimeter in diameter and also should be above the active arm. Okay. Now I need to make bend in this wire to bring it at the embrasure area between the first and second premolar. At this point, I need to make small bend, just like this. Yes. Also, I need to make a small bend which will direct the wire at the mesio-occlusal margin of the second premolar. Okay. I check my active arm, correct. Coil position correct. The arm, there is no large space between it and the mesioclusal margin. The arm directed well at the embrasure area between the first and second premolar. Now I start to mark the point at which the wire moves occlusally. Before the mark point, I hold the wire, make small bend, I need to cut the excess wire that interfere with my work. The wire directed distally, this is incorrect. I hold the wire, move it easily. Okay. Now I continue my bend. Need more bend. About 4 millimeter after the palatal margin, I make the retentive zigzag. I need 1 millimeter clearance between the wire and the cast to allow the acrylic of the base plate to make the spring well embedded in it. Okay. Now we finish the construction of the spring. At the end, we should check the following. The spring should fit passively in its position. The active arm should be located at the middle third of the crown. The active arm should be well adapted mesially to provide a good control over the tooth. The active arm should follow the contour of the crown. The coil should be 3 to 5 millimeter over the active arm, and the imaginary line that represents the long axis of the first premolar should pass through this coil the coil should be 2 millimeter away from the labial vestibular sulcus. The wire should not interfere with the opposing arch to avoid fracture, and I need to leave at least 1 millimeter space to allow the acrylic to fit under the spring. The activation of this spring is also just like the canine retractor. That's made by closing the coil so the active arm move distally about 3 millimeter, then catch the crown and move it. Now thank you.